What's up, lords and ladies? Welcome back to another video on this channel. So in today's video, I wanted to make a video titled The Ultimate Guide on Keeping Bearded Dragons. So this video is basically as much as information as I possibly can give you guys on the basic care on bearded dragons. Now, I've done multiple videos talking about the different types of cares for them, like how to get them to eat their veggies, how to set up a bearded dragon enclosure. But today I want to focus more on just informing any new person who's getting a bearded dragon. I've been keeping bearded dragons for about 10 years now. I've also successfully bred them. I've also built enclosures like this one that you see back here. But even then, I still am learning a lot about them. Next year, I plan on building some PVC enclosures and testing out the bioactive realm of bearded dragons, because I feel like there's more beneficial things on that. But I still need to do my research on it as well as test it out for myself. But today, I'm going to give you guys a very basic guideline on bearded dragons. So this is Bearded Dragons 101 with Lord Elion. And we need to zoom in, because you know what time it is. What's up, man? You know, it's a little bit late right now. You know, it's nighttime. But I figured, since it's nighttime, I'll get my nighttime video groove on and maybe record a video or two, you know? Yeah. Oh my God. But with that being said, let's get started with this video. Let's go. Okay, so the very first thing that you guys need to ask yourself when getting a bearded dragon is, of course, the setup. Now, when it comes to enclosure size, there's a lot of people who would like to get a really big enclosure like a 60-gallon, and there's really nothing wrong with that. However, there's a couple things that you need to take into account. Currently, I own 10 bearded dragons, and one thing I've noticed about owning 10 bearded dragon is that 3 out of the 10 actually don't like to climb at all. Now that right there is a little bit of a concern, because if I do have a 60-gallon enclosure, that means I'm adding a lot more branches, and if my bearded dragon happens to be the one that doesn't like to climb, it's gonna have a harder access to reach the heat. That's just something that I've noticed with my bearded dragons, and I do own 10, and only 3 out of the 10 basically don't like to climb. So majority of the people who get a bearded dragon, your bearded dragon's really gonna like to climb. So I would recommend you guys getting a much bigger enclosure, but if you want to be on the safe side and you're getting a juvenile bearded dragon and really want to watch him grow, I recommend getting a 40-gallon enclosure and really watching your bearded dragon based off that. Because I'll give you the example of my girl BB. Okay, so I'm gonna give you my example of BB here. As you can see, she's a full-grown bearded dragon. She is nice and chunky. She was a little bit sick earlier, and I did make videos about it, but she recovered and she bounced back. She's eating her veggies, she's eating and doing well. But if I put her in a 60-gallon enclosure, she would actually not climb at all and stay at the bottom of the enclosure. Now that doesn't mean she's not strong and is not able to hold her weight. As you can see, she's holding herself up pretty well. But what I've noticed is that she tends to be a little bit lazy and does not like to climb at all. Now that again doesn't mean that she's unhealthy, but it's just something to take into notice, that, you know, if I did give her a big enclosure, she's actually not gonna want to climb. Now that shouldn't alarm you guys or make you go away from the bigger enclosures. You should definitely adjust your enclosures even after you get it for your bearded dragon. So if you notice that your bearded dragon doesn't like to climb, the most important thing is to provide it with the proper heat. Okay, so right here we have a 40-gallon enclosure that I built earlier, or I put together earlier for a video, and this right here happens to be the Exoterra 40-gallon. It is pretty tall, so you can put a couple branches in there, and I currently don't have any bearded dragons in here, but you know, of course, if I did, I would add more things. But right now I'm going to show you guys what a adult bearded dragon looks like. In here we have my girl BB. She's just gonna chill there, and as you can see, it is not too big, but it's also not too small. However, like I mentioned before, BB happens to be the type to not like to climb, so if I did put her inside of this enclosure, she would honestly just stay down here, probably stay on this and just chill there. She would never climb, and I've owned her for maybe 5 years, and you know, lately she's just been a lazy and not want to climb at all. So it's nothing to be concerned. It's just sometimes happens for, you know, adult bearded dragons. They get a little bit lazy. Doesn't mean they're unhealthy, but she just happens to be the type to not like to climb. But with that being said, for her, even though the size is not the biggest, it would actually benefit her a little bit more because of the fact that, you know, she has access to the heat, you know, on the ground, versus if I had a really big enclosure, you know, she won't have access to the heat as much because she would probably be chilling over there and the heat wouldn't get to her. However, you can provide more heat for a bigger enclosure, but I just wanted to toss those things so that way you guys could have an opinion when it comes to picking up a enclosure. If you do get a bigger size, definitely take into account that your bearded dragon, you know, needs that proper heat. Now speaking of heat, I've actually found these at the donation booth, and they happen to be a dual lamp. Now, like I said, I currently don't use this for my bearded dragons, but I did find this for free, which was pretty cool, at a donation booth. You know, you just donate. Technically, it wasn't for free, but they gave me this for a donation, which, you know, wasn't much, and it was pretty cool, the fact that they do that here at the Reptile Expos. So what I did here is actually, this happens to be for the heat, and this happens for the UVB. But I currently don't use this for my bearded dragons. What I would like to use is actually something that has a longer range for the UVB, so like the tubes. And for the UV, or for the heat, what I might do if I did have a much bigger enclosure is maybe put 2 heat sources here. That way it's nice and warm for your bearded dragon, as well as having a full range of a UVB source. That way your bearded dragon gets a full range of UVB. But like I said, if you do get a bigger enclosure, you know, definitely take into account that you're gonna need more heat and more lighting. Don't just get a small little heat and put it in the corner and think that's it. Definitely get a temperature gun as well. So as you can see, we have my temperature gun. Right now it's gonna read an odd number because I just turned on the light, but it's sitting at 80, so that's what my room temperature is right now. But sooner or later this will start to warm up. But with that being said, the proper temperature for a bearded dragon really varies on the location that you're at. So what I notice here in Canada is that you really want to keep them on the warmer side, especially in the winter. So if it gets really cold outside, I'm probably gonna keep these guys on the warmer end, about 105 to 120 sometimes, but you want to give them the access and the ability to escape the heat and not be directly on it every single time. Otherwise your bearded dragon is going to start to you know, try to regulate itself and have its mouth open, and it's almost like a dog that kind of has his mouth open and breathing. They don't, you know, need that much heat, but they do require a hot basking area. I know that Google says about 95, but what I notice keeping my bearded dragons at 95 is that they become a little bit sluggish. And keeping them on the warmer end, they're very active, they're very, you know, always eating, and they always want to eat their veggies. Now let's say more or less you got the setup going on, but you're still a little bit iffy on what you should get. Something that I've noticed with keeping bearded dragons is that the light bulb also varies depending on the enclosure size. So let's say you keep your bearded dragon like this. Let's say it's a juvenile and you manage to be able to keep it in this type of setup. As you can see, the UVB from the UVB, or let's say the heat source from here to BB, is not too far. So you definitely want to be checking with your temperature gun to make sure it reaches the proper temperature of, as you can see, it's reading about 102, which more or less is kind of what I'm keeping some of my bearded dragons. I do try to keep them a little bit higher, so maybe about 110, but it varies on bearded dragon. So what I notice is that if you do keep something like a basking area, and your bearded dragon happens to be one that likes to climb, then it has access to the heat. However, if you do have a larger enclosure, like a much taller one, you might need to either add more branches that they like to climb or have a hotter heat spot. So, you know, a lot of people say get a 100-watt light bulb, which most of the times is correct, but they are kind of referring to this kind of setup because this right here happens to be 100 watts and this only gets about 100 right about here. So if you are keeping a bearded dragon in a taller enclosure, you know, unless you have this type of setup almost very similar to this, then you might be able to get away with it. But if you are keeping it in a, you know, larger setup where the heat bulb is literally like almost to the roof, then you probably need to get something a little bit hotter or have something that reaches there, that the bearded dragon could climb and get to it. Because you know, that's why I don't like telling or like saying get this type of light bulb, because honestly it really depends on your enclosure size, your enclosure height. But one thing I do notice is that if your bearded dragon loves to climb, like let's say BB right now is actually cooperating and, you know, chilling up here, but they will have access to the heat. And this right here is sitting at about 105 right now, and it is gonna get a little bit warmer. And she's right now is like, okay, you said I like to climb, I'll show you how I like to climb. But you see, she honestly does not like being up on this branch. She most likely will stay down here and just chill here. So if you noticed, right, if I keep her, let's say I know that this is her favorite type of, you know, spot. If this is where she stayed and this is how high the heat bulb was, and I check this, it's only sitting at about 80, which is not good. This right here is no bueno. So if you imagine my bearded dragon, even though it has a 100-watt light bulb, it only gets really warm up here. So if she's the type to not like to climb and just chill down here, even though you do technically have the proper light, you're not gonna get the full benefit of your bearded dragon getting the full heat unless you somehow manage to get this off the ground or you get a branch. But like I mentioned, some bearded dragons just don't like to climb. BB happens to be a prime example, and she's probably my more healthier bearded dragon that's always active. She's always showing me love. You can give me a kiss? Oh, you see that? Girl, oh, like that was like, you see, you're so cute, man. Damn, man, that melted my heart. But she happens to be the type not to climb as much. So if I did have this branch in here, she would not use it. She would just chill down here. So with that being said, I might remove this branch, put it somewhere else, and give her a much warmer heat bulb that really heats up this area right here so she could get the proper heat. So I might get like 150 or 200 watt. I don't even know if they make that, but I'll get something really hot that heats up this area to 100. That way she gets the proper heat, even though she's a lazy and doesn't like to climb, and technically she will save me so much money if she just sat up here. Yes, I'm talking to you. You know how much money I would be saving if all you did was just sit up here? She's like, don't talk about me like that. Why are you yelling at me? Now, with that being said, something that's very important for bearded dragons and reptile keeping is these timers. I can't express enough how many times I actually told people, get a timer, get a timer. I'm probably gonna start giving these away at the reptile expos, because honestly, these things are lifesavers. If you see all the lights that I have in my reptile room, well, right now most of them are turned off, but all the lights are connected to this. I basically don't even have to be in the room and the lights will turn on and turn off on their own. So this is honestly a lifesaver, and there's two in here. So usually I keep my bearded dragons light on for about 10 to 12 hours a day. So if you are gonna get a bearded dragon, take in consideration that your light bill might go slightly up, especially if you're keeping it for that long, which that's what they require, because these guys don't have access to the light, so they do require the light to be on for a long period of time, and they do require the heat as well. So if you are gonna get a bearded dragon, take that into consideration. You know, I haven't really seen much change in the light bill, but I do own quite a bit of reptiles, so you know, of course, paying the light bill has definitely become like something to be concerned of. But like I said, if you're keeping one reptile, you probably won't notice much, but once you start keeping the amount that I do, that's when you start to notice a difference in the light bill. Now, when it comes to enclosures, I did a whole entire video titled how to set up a bearded dragon. So I'll put the link in the description down below, and more or less you get to see how I put together this enclosure and what substrate I use and all of that good stuff. This video is mostly focused on a little bit of details that I might have missed in other videos, and as well as going a little bit more in depth of other information that maybe some of you guys might not have known. So I'm gonna try to keep this video as informative as possible, but just note that I do plan on modifying my enclosures in the future into a more bioactive enclosure, which I'm kind of experimenting with right now and trying to see if it actually works, what is better, because I do believe that these guys do require maybe some sort of way that they could dig and, you know, have some more enrichment in their life. So, you know, it's something that I'm always constantly learning. I'm always constantly doing my research. So I, you know, just like you guys who are watching these videos, I'm also watching videos too. So it's really cool to have a reptile community that you could always be learning from. But I'm gonna look into it and then I'll keep you guys posted on it. So definitely subscribe. Hey, if you're watching this, you need to subscribe. BB, tell them to subscribe. Oh, you see, she looked back. She looked back at it. She's looking back at that booty. Now, with that being said, the type of light bulb that I use happens to be the 10.0. You know, they have the coil one, the one that's right on this one, but I'm starting to stay away from these ones, you know, and trying to get one that has a full range across the enclosure, sort of like this one right here. As you can see, it starts from here, goes here, and it has a really good range, even though this one is starting to die down, which also reminds me, you should be changing your UVBs every 4 to 6 months. So what I like to do is actually get a pen and I would mark the UVB. You know, let's say today was December. I'd put December 1st. Then 6 months later, I'll look back, be like, oh damn, it's time for me to change this UVB. So you can write on a piece of paper or write somewhere where you remember. I like writing on the bulbs. That way I could actually remember when I see each individual one. So writing it down and being like, today I need to change it, is really important, because these do lose strength, and UVB is very important for bearded dragons to be able to, you know, digest their food, you know, build bones. Like it just does a lot for them that the sun would technically do in the wild. But since we're keeping them in captivity, we need to basically replicate the sun, and that's what the heat and also the UVB is for. Now, I was gonna make a little tiny segment in this video talking about the different types of drugs, I'm joking, but the different types of medications that my bearded dragons have used in the past. You know, I've been keeping bearded dragons for 10 years, and yes, of course, in those 10 years, some of my bearded dragons have gotten sick, some of my bearded dragons needed some boost, and this is more or less what I have. I'm almost became a little tiny, what's the thing called? A little tiny vet, but I would kind of stay away from this for this video. But if you want me to make a video talking about, you know, like dewormers, different types of medication for respiratory infection, definitely let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll put it in my list of videos to do. I might even get my vet friends to come and help me. That way the video gets a little bit more of recognition, and it's not just some random guy who doesn't have his vet license kind of giving you guys advice, even though I do have the experience, and this is basically what my vet has given me throughout the years. So I do want to make a video talking about this, but I do want to get someone more professional and more informed on the different types of details, because I do know information and how to use it and what it's for, but I want to get into the scientific reasons of how this is used and what it does, basically. So if you guys want me to do that, definitely subscribe, because I'll be making a video about that too. Okay, so let's say now you got basically the enclosure set up, you have the light fixtures, you also have the decoration. Honestly, I find that to be the more easier part of you know, picking out the reptile, because once you basically picked out and got a really good enclosure and have a really good setup going, you know, with the timers and all of those good things, now comes a little bit more of the trickier part. The diet. Now, this is where I kind of feel like a lot of people get kind of scared away, or kind of, I wouldn't say neglect their reptile, but don't really give them the proper diet that your bearded dragon needs. Now, for me, when it comes to a baby bearded dragon, they require a lot more attention to details. So providing them crickets almost every single day and giving them a good handful that they could basically go and eat a whole bunch. You know, usually what I would do for babies is that I'll get a good handful. I don't go and pick out 12 or 2. Most of the times I have babies that hatch out and are only in my possession for a period of time before they are moved on to their new owner. But what I tend to do is that, let's say I have a baby, I would get a couple maybe of crickets, maybe about 10, a good handful, and I'll toss some in there and let him just go crazy. Let him eat the crickets, let him enjoy himself. And what I would do is that once I see him stop eating, I would take away the crickets so the crickets don't chew on him. And then from there, later down in the afternoon, I might go in there and give him a little bit more, just to see that he is you know, okay and well fed. Now when it comes to feeding an adult bearded dragon, they tend to eat less insects and more veggies. Now I'm going to put in the description down below a website that you guys could check out on what type of veggies you guys could use, and you can more or less see the different types of calcium, how frequently you could you know, provide your bearded dragons with this type of veggies, what type of fruits. It just gives you a very good overall, and I found it to be very useful, especially throughout the years of using and keeping bearded dragons. I used this website to kind of give me a more understanding on what veggies to use, because honestly, bearded dragons can be very picky when it comes to feeding veggies. But what I would highly recommend is that once you got your baby, or let's say you got a juvenile, that you really introduce them and get them used to eating veggies, because once they're in adulthood and once they're a lot older, that's basically their whole entire diet. Every morning around 7 a.m. I would go in there and give them fresh veggies that I prepared in the night before or a couple weeks before, and I'll keep in the fridge, and I'll go in and I'll give them fresh veggies, and they will basically eat that instantly in the morning. And then around maybe in the afternoon, I'll go and give them a little bit of crickets. But for adults, they tend to eat more veggies and less crickets. And if your bearded dragon is the type to only eat insects, it's okay as long as you gut load your crickets. And by gut loading, I mean you basically get the veggies that you would provide your bearded dragon with to your insects, and that way your insects are fully gut loaded with veggies. So it's definitely something that takes a little bit of experience and a little bit of a know-how how to do. But the one thing that you don't want to do is you know, not provide veggies to your bearded dragon. Even if your bearded dragon is picky, always try to give them veggies every single day, because there might be that one day that they'd be like, you know what, today I'm vegan. I am vegan today. Now, something very important for bearded dragons and any type of reptile when it comes to feeding them insects is that you also provide some calcium and also some vitamin with D3. Now, this right here is separated. This is calcium without D3, and this is calcium with D3. And I might make a separate video as well, as just to highlight what is this, and I might include it with the, you know, the medication that I use, and also this, and go a little bit more in depth about, you know, why this is important. But you definitely need this. You know, calcium, it builds strong bones, especially for juveniles. And vitamins, everyone needs vitamins, because you know what they say. Okay, I don't know what they say. But it's very important that you provide your bearded dragons with vitamin D3 as well as calcium D3, and sometimes they come together, but like I said, I keep this separate just so I can moderate and make sure that each individual is getting different types. It's just the way that I do things, but I know a lot of people get them already mixed in, which is perfectly fine. Now, when it comes to feeding your bearded dragon, when they're juveniles or when they're babies, they mostly eat a, you know, high protein type of diet, which requires mostly insects such as superworms, hornworms, crickets, you know, that Repashy mixture that I did also a review on. I'm starting to like it a little bit more and more. However, I started to read the ingredients at the back, and I'm starting to lean towards more of a natural type of diet for my bearded dragons, but I still have that as backup. But you know, I'll also put in the description down below a list of insects that you guys could use for your bearded dragons, because there's honestly a ton. And since you guys are watching this from different parts of the world, some of you guys have access to insects that I don't have access to here in Canada. So, you know, definitely do your research on the different types of insects that you could could use. But you know, these guys love crickets, these guys love superworms, and they also love hornworms, dubia roaches, all of those different types of insects. But I'll leave the link in the description down below, that way you guys could check it out. Now, something that's very important when a bearded dragon is transitioning from a baby to an adult is that you do that switch. When they're babies, they tend to only eat about 80% protein, which includes all those insects, as well as only 20% veggies. That's what more or less, you know, online and all the researchers that I did say. However, what I've experienced is that babies tend to eat a little bit more, you know, salads and veggies when you provide them to it first. So before, you know, in the morning, before giving them insects, give them their veggies, and they would actually go crazy for that, get full, and then after you could provide more proteins later on throughout the day. Now make sure that the veggies are nicely chopped, as well as the cricket size is, you know, about a perfect size for your bearded dragon. You know, bearded dragons, they can't eat large prey such as, you know, mice and different types of things, but I'll stay away from that and actually only give them insects and give them something that they can actually build a foundation and build a nicely healthy lifestyle. Now, honestly, I am on fire right now, like literally, like I'm giving you guys like as much as information as I can from the 10 years of me keeping reptiles or keeping bearded dragons. And it's kind of crazy because, you know, I've always wanted to make this type of video, but I feel like there's so much more information for bearded dragons that, you know, require a little bit more of an experience with you guys having the bearded dragon and learning it yourself. But here comes the fun part: choosing your bearded dragon. Now, there's so many different types of beautiful bearded dragons, and I own quite a few of them. And just to give you guys a kind of example of them, I'll show you guys some of them. Okay, so to begin with, we have my boy Wilbur here. Now, this guy right here happens to be a hypo Wiblets bearded dragon. And what makes the Wiblets bearded dragon is that these guys lack a coloration and pattern at the back, and they tend to be, you know, different type of you know, colors sometimes. But the Wiblets, compared to the other bearded dragon that I'm going to show you, holds color. Sometimes they hold it on their head, as you can see he has a nice yellow tone to it, and sometimes they hold it on the side of their bodies. So it's really cool that these Wiblets don't have any pattern, as well as retain some beautiful coloration. Now, speaking of lacking color, we have right here a zero bearded dragon, and these guys lack zero color and also zero pattern. And as you can see, he has that gray look right now, but usually he's nicely white. But right now he's kind of a little bit upset with me, which is okay. You know, a lot of people have the misconception that if you see a black beard, they are automatically pissed off. Most of the times it's a sign of dominance, and right now he could actually see Wilbur and is like, yo, there's a big dog here, like, yo, I gotta show that I'm a man. Well, I can make him talk. Yo, what's up, man? So he's right now looking at Wilbur. As you can see, Wilbur is now head bobbing, being like, yo, what's up, dude? But that doesn't mean that they're being aggressive or anything, but they usually show dominance by that, which that's why it's very important that you don't keep them together. You know, I strongly believe that if you want a bearded dragon, you should have the proper enclosures for them, unless you're gonna breed them and do some other projects and have experience with them, then you could keep them together. But if you're getting your very first bearded dragon, I don't think your bearded dragon needs a friend. I think you could be its friend for a good while. But this right here happens to be a zero bearded dragon. Now, just to show you one more bearded dragon, we have this girl, my girl BB, that happens to be a translucent bearded dragon. And as you can see, she does have some nice coloration to her, but she has those jet black eyes as well as those jet black nails. Now, there's so many different types of variations for bearded dragons. There's some that are super red, there's some that are super yellow, super orange, and I honestly think they're really cool at the fact that they come in different types of colors, different types of genes and morphs. You know, I obviously have a passion for them. You know, the fact that you could get ones with black eyes. Imagine like an all-white one with black eyes. That's honestly like insane. So there's so many different types of bearded dragons that you could pick for, and I highly recommend before picking a bearded dragon, you actually go to a local reptile expo, talk to a local bearded dragon breeder and see what they have available, and obviously pick from someone that you could trust. Now, when choosing a bearded dragon, you want to make sure that your bearded dragon is nice and alert, has really bright eyes, doesn't have them closed off, as well as, you know, is nice and chunky, and it just comes from a really good place. Because oftentimes I see so many bearded dragons that have so much weight loss, have, you know, really foggy type of eyes, as well as are not alert and automatically look like they are sleeping, but they just are not healthy. And for someone who's picking out their very first bearded dragon, that's something that you need to take in consideration. You want that bearded dragon to be active, to be crazy almost. Sort of like Wilbur here, even though I don't recommend you guys getting such a crazy little monkey like this guy. But as you can see, even though he has the black beard, because he can see the ladies at the back, he's very alert, he's very active. You know, he always wants to like climb, and as you can see, he's like head bobbing. But this is what I mean by like a very active bearded dragon. Right now it is kind of, you know, breeding season for this little guy anyways. He sees the ladies. If I put him in with a girl, he will go nuts. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'm definitely gonna probably do a part 2 to this video and review the clips that I recorded. In case I missed something out, I really want to make that video about, you know, the medicine and the medication and how to properly get your bearded dragon nice and healthy. But there's so much more that goes into caring for bearded dragons, so I'm definitely going to be making a part 2, so stay tuned to that. But this is more or less kind of the basic kind of care and everything that I could think of right now. But I definitely want to be making a part 2 because there's so much more information that I feel like I need to share with you guys about keeping bearded dragons. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Hit that post notification bell button, baby. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. I'm Lord Elion, keep the blood pumping, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.